Crandall. So for those of you who don't know, Brady had his debut at the Arnold Pro-Am. It is no longer called the Arnold Amateur because it is a world championship. So feel free to let everybody know how your experience was.
Yeah. Well, first off, I was super excited to get the invite and be there to compete amongst all those guys, amongst pros, some of the best in the world. And I had a very interesting prep leading up to this competition because I decided that literally less than a week before I was going to compete in the Natural Strongman Worlds qualifier, East Coast Strongest Natural Man. And then I also, literally a week before that, had a week-long trip in India for a wedding. So it wasn't the most ideal prep. On top of all that, about a month out from the Arnolds, I ran into an issue with my gym and had to completely relocate gyms and find a new strongman gym within DC, which is pretty challenging actually. So yeah, it was a less than ideal prep, but all in all, I think I was very pleased with my performance at the Arnold. So the weekend before, I won East Coast Strongest Natural Man, qualified for Natural Worlds, which is coming up in August, and then we had the Arnold. I think 5 or 6 days later. Going into the Arnold, I knew that pressing was going to be a weak spot for me. And the very first event was a max log event. And right off the bat, I missed a 285 opener, which I was really disappointed about, considering, I was hitting over 300 consistently in training, 310, 320 range. But I was able to get that on my second attempt and then, missed the third attempt at 300. I really think that even since the Arnold, my technique has improved on logs so much, especially in the rack position in my clean, that next time I encounter log, I'm getting well above 300, no doubt. It's just a matter of time, I think. So that set me back a little bit right off the bat.
A lot of it just seemed to come down to technique and nerves. Like it seemed like because you're so nervous about log, you kind of just rushed. Like you wrote it. You don't normally do that when you're training. So I guess
the first event is always the hardest, anyways, in my opinion. Yeah, because you've been traveling, you've cut weight, you're at a new venue, and then you got to figure out how to do warm-ups and time all that up. And then for that to be my weakest event, anyways, it's super challenging spot to be in. So I lost some points on that, more than I would have liked, but I was able to make up for it a bit in my yoke, which I believe was next. And I won my heat in that, which I was very pleased about. One of like top 10 out of like 22 in that, maybe even close to top 5 in the yoke. And then we had a deadlift event. Deadlift is, I'm usually, I think middle of the pack-ish on deadlift. Like I can kind of hold my own, but at the top level, it's challenging. So they had a very heavy trump trap bar at 800 pounds, and then a lighter kind of mercy trap bar at 640. And I missed 800, which was kind of disappointing, but I was able to crank out, I think, 4 or 5 reps on the 640, kind of middle of the pack on that event. And then the last event was a sandbag medley, and it was originally supposed to be sort of a steeplechase event, but they're running short on time. So it ended up just being a sandbag loading event. And it was sort of alternating between a regular sandbag and a Husafell sandbag. So I think it was like 300, 325, and then 350, something like that. And I was the first.
It ended at 350.
Yeah, I was the first man in my heat to actually complete all the sandbags and get that last 350 over the bar. So I was pretty pumped about that. So I think at the end of the day, I finished 13 out of 22.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which is a good standing for those of you who don't know. Like to go to a world championship the first time, right after Arnold Amateurs, pretty much too. So not a whole lot of prep time for the Arnold, considering they kind of post the events slowly. No hate towards that, but I get it.
I think next time I go, which will probably be 2027, most likely, I think I have a very good chance to make the finals and hopefully podium.
That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that too. I think a pro card's definitely within possibility, especially after seeing how you did in the loading and the yoke. Now it's just time to get that press to click. And deadlift, it's just a matter of fatigue. So if your fatigue management's like locked in, ideally it would be best if you didn't have to do a comp right before. So I think it would have been a whole different performance. You might have
the prep was miserable for that competition. It was not ideal at all. So if I get that locked in, I'll be in a much better spot.
Yeah, if you don't have to cut weight 2 times in a row, it would be good.
Yeah, and not traveling before, and then when I got back from India, of course I got sick. So that didn't help either.
So how did you manage getting sick from India and then coming back in to compete? Like, did you take an IV? Did you get a lot of extra electrolytes in? What did you do to mediate that?
Well, I don't want to get too graphic, but essentially everything I ate, it wasn't staying in me. It wasn't coming out the front end. It was all just coming out of the back end too quickly. So it was really just a matter of, taking some stool hardeners and making sure I could keep food down and actually give my body the ability to process that food and not get dehydrated. So I was taking a lot of electrolytes on top of that. And that took a good couple of days, though, to really get back to feeling good. And it made training very challenging when you feel like that, too.
Yeah, and that was towards the last month of training, too, right?
Yeah, so that was really like when we're getting into peak time.
Do you think that affected your log going into the competition the most?
Yeah, I mean, even if just mentally, because I hadn't been able to, hit 300 in training leading up to the competition as well and have it feel as locked in as I had prior to my trip overseas. That was sort of like a big gap in training because in India, I really had no strongman implement access, like very minimal access to even like hotel equipment. And the air makes it really difficult for your lungs to breathe. So like even coming back, like you it's hot, you feel the air pollution in your lungs. It's a very harsh environment.
The food was tasty though, right?
The food was amazing. That is one major plus. The food was amazing. I did eat good while I was there. And I did not gain too much weight while I was there either, which I was happy about. I was able to maintain.
So I haven't seen too many announcements on Natural World lately, but we know that the events will probably be similar to Ireland's Strongest Man, since it's very close to where World is going to be. So I'd imagine there's going to be some kind of max deadlift, some kind of axle clean and press.
If we got a max deadlift and an axle, I'd be very happy.
Yeah,
axle
I think
it's my favorite pressing event.
Because like in terms of like the natural guys, like your deadlift's up there. It's just when it comes to the enhanced guys, like you need about 10 to 15% more to really
if you get a max deadlift, I'm pulling over 700. Like there's no doubt in my mind, it's there.
Because you did what, like 645 for easy reps on a 4-inch deficit, so there's no way you won't have 700.
Yeah, it's there. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and picking the right time to do it too.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of which, what event would you be the most excited for if you could pick events for Natural Worlds?
I'd say 2. One would be deadlift, and then a max deadlift specifically, not a deadlift for reps. I wouldn't be super excited about that, but and then probably I guess sandbag steeplechase. I would really love. I always do great at those events. I'll throw in farmers too. That's I mean, moving events is sort of I think my specialty, moving and loading. So as many moving and loading events as we can get, I'll be super pumped.
Nice. Yeah, those are always fun. Obviously, I don't want people who might be under the radar for you. What would be the worst event to give you for that, if you're allowed to share?
The worst event would probably be like a circus dumbbell, to be honest. That's probably where I struggle the most. Your circus
dumbbell's gotten a lot better, though.
It's getting there, but there's a lot of natural guys that have really good circus dumbbells.
It's more technique-based.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tom Butts, who's in, weight class below me, granted, he's won Natural Worlds twice now. His circus dumbbell is like 210, 220 pounds. And he's very consistent. That's the world record. Yeah.
So the world record's 250 for 90 kilo. It might have been broken recently, but it was like a smaller handle or something like that.
It's just such a technique-based lift that a lot of natural guys can get very good at it. And I haven't really dedicated enough time to develop my technique on that. And it's already, I think I struggle with it too, just with my slap tear and shoulder surgery to begin with. So it's just something I need to keep working on.
And on top of that, you're still very new to the sport. on top of that? Because you transitioned from powerlifting when you won nationals for USPA, what, like 2.5 years?
2023, yeah.
Yeah.
So last year was really my first full season, like first full year in strongman.
Yeah, and like specializing in it at that too.
Yeah.
So I think you did the first Newcastle Chaos, right? But it was like a one-off.
I did.
Like,
yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of growth when it comes to like how fast you've progressed in the sport. And, you know, obviously you put 5 to 10 years into the sport, you basically start seeing what you're capable of at that point.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really clear in strongman is the guys that do the best just have a really solid foundation in other sports and then come into strongman.
I would agree. I think there are very rare exceptions where they start with strongman and then they just keep getting better and better.
Yeah.
But usually that involves really good coaching for that.
Yeah, like within, you know, just 2-3 years of someone being like at a very high level in another sport, when they come into strongman, they did very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that, especially if they have like an Olympic lifting background or powerlifting or
throwing.
I would say throwing would be amazing for that too. You have a throwing background too, right?
I do, yeah. I wasn't great at throwing, but the entire reason I actually did throwing in high school is the coach did a lot of Olympic weight training for us. So I literally did it just for the lifting aspect.
Nice. That's good coaching too. It's hard to find a good Olympic lifting coach.
Yeah.
Do you plan on taking more of an off season after Natural Worlds?
I think so. Yeah. At this point, I don't have hard plans for exactly what I want to do after Natural Worlds. I think I'm going to start being a lot more strategic with the competitions that I do choose to do. And I think ultimately the goal after Natural Worlds will be to get a pro card. So it's about determining what pathway is best for that. Maybe it's a pro-am show. Maybe it's, going back to nationals. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I'll take some time to think about that.
Well, especially with the way they're picking the events for Strongman Corp Nationals, that's a pretty sweet set of events. Have you leaned in more towards like Strongman Corp and Pro Strongman League, or are you kind of like, is it kind of like up in the air for you right now?
It's pretty up in the air. Like I said, the one goal is probably a pro card at this point. Like that's probably what I'll focus on, and whatever I got to do to get there, and whatever I think is the best path for that is probably how I'll choose my competitions next year.
So I'm sure most people probably know this, but in case they don't, you've been vegan the entirety of your strength career, right?
Yeah, I have. Yep. Even before I started my strength career, I was vegan. So I played college football for a year, fractured my spine. This was way back in, let me think, 2016, 2017. And then I think around 2018 or so, I went vegan and started competing in powerlifting. And I do strongman.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So, what if you did get your pro card? Say there's like this hypothetical comp. You made 5 events or 6 events, right? Since they're starting to do that more with 2-day event competitions. Say you got to pick your 6 events. What do you think would give you your pro card if they give you these 6 events?
Ooh, I'm going to say some type of axle event, the press. Maybe a max deadlift, and then definitely farmer, sandbag, steeplechase. I'd really also like to see, let me think, kind of, I'm blanking. I don't know what it's called now. The telephone pole flip. Yeah. What's it called?
Truck pull.
truck pull would also be great. No, the pole flip. I don't know why I'm blanking.
Single fingers.
Single finger.
That would be a good event for you.
That'd be another great event for me. Yeah, anything that's going to, I think, require guys to come in conditioned, that's going to be a good competition for me.
If you did the single finger, would it be in a ladder or for a minute straight?
I think I'd be good either or. I think I'd prefer a ladder. I think I generally enjoy being quicker rather than like these long like endurance type things like max reps events. I think speed tends to be favorable for me.
What is the worst event you have ever done be it like pro-am, local, whatever?
This isn't one that I've done, but this is someone I'm prepping someone for now at the Florida Fit Fest. So this event, it's basically 2 events combined, so it's double points, but it's a 6-event competition. But this is a double point event. They have to do a sandbag to shoulder for max reps for 60 seconds, and then they get like a 20-second time to reset into a farmer's carry for max distance, and it's turns every 60 feet.
Why?
I don't know. It's a very strange event. But yeah, the fact that like a max distance farmers is already rude to begin with, and then you throw in the sandbag before and add turns to it. That's pretty insane.
So, speaking of which, you've kind of led into coaching. So how is it being a coach? Welcome to the coaching world.
I enjoy it. I've always been hesitant to get into coaching for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to develop enough experience to feel comfortable doing that. But second is I've been cautious to make sure it doesn't take away from my own training and time that goes into that. Because I want the sport to stay fun. I don't want it to feel like a job because it's a hobby for me.
Yeah, that's the hard part for sure. Like I definitely have gotten to a point myself with regards to coaching where I let my coaching go take precedence over like my training.
Yeah, and I mean that's a choice some people do decide to make, and that's fine. But that's not where I'm at right now. Where that's not a decision I want.
Yeah, and with that being said, it's like I don't think I'm that far ahead, to say the least. I think if I was at a point where it's like, oh, I could probably win the Arnold, I'd probably buckle in a little bit more and maybe take coaching as like a slight backseat if I had to. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Looks like we're frozen. Is it frozen on your end too, or is it just me? Is it working now?
Yeah, sorry, I had to jump into my phone here. I don't know what happened. My computer screen just froze, but adjusting on the fly here.
That's okay. I appreciate you doing that for me.
Yeah, no problem.
So once again, I completely understand what you mean with the coaching regard, because it can take a detriment to your training sometimes. Sometimes it could be a good ad because you learn a lot more than other people will.
Yeah, one interesting way to think about it is now you have like all of these test subjects to try out things on. So then you can decide what is, everyone's different, so it doesn't always apply like that. But sometimes you can learn things that work, things that don't, and then apply it to your own training.
Especially if they're built similar to you or they have very similar like background elements to themselves.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure with some of the athletes you have where it's like, oh, they're built similar to you or whatever. And it's like, cool, we're going to do this and see if it works on you. If it doesn't, then we'll move forward with something else. So how's the experimentation with that going? Because I noticed that you run Strongman Saturdays at Invictus, right?
I do, yeah. So when I lost access to my old gym, I was kind of scrambling. And my girlfriend had gotten into CrossFit at the time at Invictus, which is well known in the CrossFit world for people that aren't familiar with Invictus. They bring teams to CrossFit Games, all that. And the owner there, Mike, has been super open to started to incorporate Strongman into Invictus. And so one thing I've started to do at that gym is, you know, I've moved all my equipment in there and I train out of there. And now I'm also coaching a class every week there and coaching some clients out of there. That's been super fun. I find like helping other people with their technique makes me think about my own technique a lot more. And I think it's actually been really helpful for me to do that, just because you kind of have to step outside of yourself sometimes. And when you see someone else doing something wrong, you realize like, oh, this is what I'm doing too, and this is how to correct it. But it's easier to think about it when it's someone else sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to fix your own mechanical flaws sometimes.
Yeah.
And I had a teacher once. She told me not 90% of learning is teaching.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm sure you probably heard that somewhere else too. I'm sure.
You don't truly know something or understand it until you can teach it.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And that's part of what coaching is. You're basically a teacher to all the movements.
Yeah.
Do you like coaching strongman? I guess that's a given, right?
I do. Yeah, I think it's fun. And I think it's fun to see people kind of bring people into the sport and help grow the sport, especially within DC, where there's not the strongman community is kind of struggling here. In that, like, everyone's kind of spread out at different gyms and kind of moving around a lot, and there's people that live right in DC but don't really have access to a good strongman gym, so they're all traveling to Maryland or Virginia or wherever. So I'm trying to really bring in that community right in the heart of the city.
Do you plan on running a show eventually, or?
I do. Yeah, I probably start with a fundraiser competition, and then from there, do like a DC Strongest. So probably next summer is sort of what I'm targeting. Maybe sooner.
Do you plan on doing that through USS or Strongman Corp down the road?
Most likely Strongman Corp. The fundraiser will probably be unsanctioned, but yeah, I'd like to get Strongman Corp sanctioned for that in the future.
Nice. That sounds like an awesome idea. So with the charity, what would be like your first fundraiser if you made one?
Yeah, so with where I live in DC, it's in the Navy Yard district. So there's a lot of military personnel that work here, live here, a lot of vets. The owner of Invictus is a former Marine, so it'd likely be some type of military fundraiser. My assistant coach for my class too is also a former Marine, and has a lot of connections there. So it would most likely be likely a veteran fundraiser event. Maybe Stop Soldier Suicide again, but cool. I don't want to cut into your thing.
That's okay. I might have to. I lose a lot of money when I do my charity events, so yeah. I may have to cut back on it for some time being, but that's an announcement for later.
Okay.
that I won't do Stop Soldier Suicide this year, but I might have to pass the torch to someone else at some point. So
okay.
it might actually work out in that sense.
Okay.
Mainly because I was getting to a point where I was spending like $2 to $3 grand minimum on the charity event by myself, because I'm like mostly self-funded for promoting, and I'm sure you probably realize some of the headache that involves.
Yeah, no, I without even getting into it, part of the reason I've been like slow and hesitant to get into it is I know how much work and funds you have to put up for that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of upfront expenses, but if you do it right, it always pays itself back. Like I found like more people will stick around for coaching if you do things for the right reasons. And that's obviously one of the many ways to do it.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is like I've come into a gym space that was not equipped to be a strongman gym yet. So I'm kind of building that out. Next step is getting a stone shelf built. I have most of the stones made at this point. So I just need to build a stone shelf and then, adding, more strongman implements from there.
And you already have a lot of stuff too. Like
I have the basics.
Yeah,
we have a full set of sandbags now, log, axle, a stone,
circus dumbbell.
Most of what we need, I can make it work.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it sounds like the gym's reasonably big then, if that's the case, right?
Yeah, it's a good sized space, especially for DC. It's literally probably one of the only warehouse gyms in DC, because warehouse spaces are very difficult to find.
So it sounds like it was good that that one gym just annexed strongman to a certain degree, because now you go to a better gym for it.
Yeah, that's true.
So you mentioned how DC has like kind of like a potential growing community for strongman. What do you think were like, other than like all these random gyms just saying, hey, we don't really do that anymore? Like I think DMV Iron was one of those gyms where they don't really do strongman anymore, or they kind of cut it off.
Iron's always had a weird relationship with strongman. So at one point when I first moved here, they'd recently kicked out all the strongmen. They're starting to allow some back in and like limited amounts of implements, like a log and things like that. But I don't think they have a stone shelf or like any major pieces of equipment still. So sorry, what was the question?
Well, I was saying, like, what do you like, other than like just casually not really catering to strongman, what do you think is like the real issue in like the given area you're in? Because I know some people from Baltimore particularly like really like doing strongman. It's obviously grown as a scene there to
Yeah.
its entirety. But like when it comes to DC, like other than just like the population density, maybe like what do you seem?
Yeah, it's good. I think real estate prices are a big thing. Strongman requires space, so being able to find a gym that has enough space is pretty challenging. Most of the gyms in DC are either like large franchise gyms like Gold's or Anytime Fitness that tend not to be super favorable to strongman, or they're like very tiny gyms that like have small owners that just kind of train people on a one-on-one basis. So finding that something like the training center equivalent here, I think Invictus is going to work out really well, and I'm super excited about that. There's a lot of people here that are really into like CrossFit and High Rocks and all of that. So I'm starting to like break off some of them to get them more interested in strongman, just because they didn't really have access to that type of training. And a lot of them are actually more interested in doing that than CrossFit style training.
What event made people want to convert to strongman? I'm curious on this one.
I think a lot of them are really interested in like the moving events and the log and things like that. Things that like they get some exposure to every once in a while in CrossFit, or that we'll see at the CrossFit Games. But most CrossFit gyms aren't really like equipped to do those type of events. I think a lot of them just get bored with their training too. That's the number one thing I hear for why people want to do strongman, is they get bored with their current training style, and they see all the variety in strongman and want to do something different.
And that is definitely the beauty in the sport, because it's like every competition you could do could be drastically different than the other, unless obviously promoters piggyback off of it.
Yeah,
but that's a whole separate conversation.
If the events are all the same, there's always going to be like a variation in the implement. Not everyone has the same implements. It's not standardized at all. Or like it's going to be a max versus for reps versus a medley. Like it's literally, I think, almost impossible to get two exact same competitions, unless a promoter literally decided to like repeat the events from last year, which I don't think has ever happened.
I think it's heavily discouraged.
Yeah.
You'll see some overlap, obviously, depending on what the limitations are for the promoter, because obviously equipment gets expensive to a certain degree.
Yeah. But
like,
being well-rounded is a big part of the sport.
Yes.
I think a lot of CrossFitters might get upset if I say this, but I feel like strongman is sort of like the true hybrid athlete, like CrossFit, where you're capable of doing all different type of movements and all different type of rep ranges. You have muscle endurance, you have strength, and CrossFit is sort of analogous, but it's more highly specialized in endurance.
Do you think so? Because I feel like there's speed components to it too, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, with the cardio rower,
I think that's one.
I mean, obviously doing a set of 20 is more endurance based, but I feel like there's a heavy speed component to it too, though. You're pretty fast.
Yeah, that's true. And I think one thing that's people still don't realize about strongmen is how in shape a lot of strongmen are today versus a decade or two ago. We're way better conditioned than any time in strongman history, I think. So it's cool to see how the sport evolves as it grows.
And I think a lot of it is because I would agree with that part of it for sure. Because like the amount of conditioning work that I've obviously had you guys do, where it's like, hey, like this picks up points, and people are like, does it? And I'm like, yes. Like doing your sprints, doing your box jumps, doing what sounds almost like the amount of powerlifters that don't do sprints that probably should, if they're like very slow and just not explosive, to say the least. And now you see it in strongman where people are doing like fast twitch fiber work. I mean, CrossFitters have been doing this for years. We just piggybacked it off of them. Same thing with Olympic lifters. We learned that from them.
Yeah, I see so many powerlifters eyeing strongman, and I mean, I came
it's like lagging
powerlifting background. Like I wanted to feel more athletic, and it's hard to feel athletic in powerlifting a lot of times. You just end up, just the nature of the training style, you end up getting winded going up flights of stairs unless you're really going out of your way to stay in shape, and most powerlifters aren't. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Everything okay on your end?
Yeah, everything's fine on my end.
I might have had a network issue.
Uh-oh.
Okay. I think I might have missed your last point where you're talking about how athletic strongmen are compared to where they were before, and how much the training for it has changed over time. It used to be more of a static monster sort of feel to it. A lot more maxing events, a lot more heavy, heavy medleys and heavy, just yokes and farmers. It's a little more regulated now, I think.
Yeah, I think part of it is with the max yoke, for example, they saw a lot of guys get injured. So they're like, maybe we can start making it a bit more about speed rather than just all out maximum force output. So I think that's been a welcome change. Although, I don't know, we see Brian Shaw's competition kind of going back to that, but that's a different topic. I think it's been a welcome change, though, to see the sport evolve more, so having guys be more conditioned. And part of that, too, I think having more lighter weight classes become a lot more competitive, that kind of pushes that, too. And really, if you look at the guys at the top, the weights they're moving, it's not like they're moving substantially lighter weights than had been moved previously. They're really, right there. They're just in much better shape now, too.
I would completely agree with that. I mean, even then, you'd argue some of the guys today are a lot better than some of the guys from 10 years ago. I mean,
yeah, I think deadlifts are the best indicator of pure static strength, and we're seeing deadlift records being broken.
Or even just the presses that are done nowadays. How many guys are pressing over 500 pounds now versus before?
Yeah. So I don't know if the argument too that all these guys used to be way statically stronger than the field.
Just medley.
Yeah.
Because you'll hear that a lot. Because there's some people they'll run competitions. They'll be like, oh well, I don't want to see any medleys, this, that, and the third. I'm like, they've been world's strongest man since the first year, so it's not something new.
Yeah.
I do think it is the future of the event, because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily completely easier to reset, but it's a little easier for the spectator aspect of it, I think.
Yeah. It's also a good way to test a variety of things in one single event.
Exactly. And if you're limited to a certain set of events, it can kind of shorten that who's the best question.
Right. I mean, the goal of strongman is to find the most well-rounded, all-around strong guy or girl. And yeah, having, if you're limited to 5 or 6 events, it can be challenging. But when you throw in a medley, now you have more ways to test them.
Exactly. And the other part about it too is it shows all the different energy systems that we do test, right? So it tests who's fast, tests who's strong, it tests who's got the endurance. The endurance, obviously, most people aren't the biggest fans of watching. I mean, occasionally we'll hear somebody say, I want to watch a max distance Husafel, and I don't know who exactly those people are, but they exist.
Yeah, as an athlete, those events are always miserable because it just zaps your energy for any events that are going to come after.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I've vomited after doing a max distance sandbag carry before in competition.
I don't think it's the best way to judge who the strongest guy is. It definitely tests who has the strongest willpower, I would say, but I wouldn't.
I
don't think that guy
conditioning. Yeah, generally.
Exactly. Because there's times where I'm I definitely wasn't the strongest guy, but I trained the life out of this event, so I got better at it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've done the same thing with your sandbag carry when you won PA Dutch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was we trained you to go for a minute and a half straight. For those of you who haven't done this, it feels awful.
Yeah, you can't breathe.
Yeah, you want to die after you want to die before the minute and a half is up, basically.
Yeah, it's the longest minute and a half of your life. So
I don't know if I'm not monetized anyways, so who cares if I said it? But going into that, you mentioned how middleweights and lightweight classes have obviously grown in the sport. Who are your favorite athletes to watch? Like if you were like study athletes.
In those weight classes?
Just in general. Like you can pick like 2 or 3 middleweights for like each man or woman, I guess, just to make it.
One athlete I've studied a lot and just his general approach to strongman would be Mitchell Hooper. I think he generally takes a pretty technique-driven approach, and he also knows how to kind of game the competitions. And, you know, a lot of competitions, like he won the Arnold one year without winning a single event just because he's so consistent. He's consistent, and he takes a very smart approach to the events and training and in competition. I've been watching Lucas Hatton a lot more recently too, and trying to learn from his pressing style. And I think one really interesting thing about him is, you know, he's one of the top pressers, but he rarely does a lot of shoulder work. It's really all in his leg drive training that's allowed him to become a strong presser. And
he doesn't do any strict press.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing like he's kind of driving in a new shift in strongman now where people are training leg drive way more just across the board. I've noticed in every weight class.
You don't really see people winning comps with the push press anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, you see way more people learning to jerk, even like log jerking, which I'm learning now. The behind the neck pressing is becoming a lot more common, and jerking that, people doing it in the training, seeing it in competitions. So I think that's another way that the sport's evolving now. It's just the way people approach pressing events, and we're seeing bigger weights because of it.
Yeah, I think people were like, why don't they bring the Flintstone lift back, which is kind of where the behind the neck max came from.
Yeah.
Because they would put those weird rocks on the end of the neck.
Yeah.
So I definitely see that being like another staple event because people were like, oh, well, let's see who's the best presser when you take out the clean. And some numbers do change quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think guys like generally enjoy training it, doing the competition too, it seems. Because everyone's
I think it's
constantly
really fun.
Social media battle to see who can like do the most weight in training and post it. But Lucas Hatton getting his 600 recently. I don't think I mean, who knows? Someone might touch it, but not for a while, I think.
I think he'll hit it if he has to.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, this is my ace in the hole if you guys really mess with me in finals.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some guys that could get close to that with the push press, but like I don't know how many guys are like really touching that weight. Like I think the closest would be Tom Evans in regards to like that kind of pressing power and Evan Singleton, but Evan Singleton's like 550 right now.
Evans definitely has the pressing power. I haven't seen much work or behind the neck work, but like he has potential for sure. Just his raw like static pressing power.
Yeah, he's probably the strongest athlete with like no technique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that his circus dumbbell is bad. His circus dumbbell surprisingly has really good technique, and his yoke technique is good. But it's like his pressing movements. It's like very like aggressive, but with like what seems like no actual like thought behind it. It's just like I'm gonna move this weight and that's it.
Yeah, I'll be super excited to see him come in with like a full like package, like well-rounded, like ready to go for a competition. Because I feel like we haven't seen him at his full potential yet.
I think a lot of it just comes down to him just like literally just locking in and not overshooting during training.
Yeah.
Because like, the numbers he's hit in training is like way better than what he's hit in competition half the time.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the fastest yoke runners, hands down. I think he could beat Mitchell Hooper on yoke, honestly.
He's surprisingly fast on yoke.
Yeah.
Because he looked like he'd be fast, but then you see him move and you're like, oh my God.
He is a monster. I definitely think he's going to be one of those guys that might shake people up if he's consistent.
Yeah.
Because it's like hit or miss with him. It's like he's either one of the best guys there that day or he's like bottom of the barrel, just depending on where he is mentally.
Yeah. I'm hoping he'll be able to sneak into the finals for World's Strongest Man this year. We'll see. The groups are very tough, but
yeah, especially Group 1.
Yeah.
I think Group 1 was like the hardest one to pick a finalist on.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, Group 3 looks pretty good too.
Yeah, they're all very competitive. And I think we're seeing at the highest level of strongman permeating all the way down the sports, just getting much more competitive.
Agreed.
This is probably the toughest groups I've seen at World's Strongest Man, where like every group has guys who like, oh man, at least like 3 or 4 of these guys should be in the finals, but it can't happen.
Do you think it would be cool if they got rid of the finals and you saw them all kind of battle it out among the 25 athletes for like, say, 8 to 10 events?
I don't know. I mean, they're kind of doing that already with having the preliminary round points carryover. It would just make the show longer. I think it's cool to see them kind of cut down the field a bit for the finals. I like the concept. I think it is a good move to count the earlier events in the finals because a lot of guys will just sandbag it in the preliminary rounds if they can get away with it. So I think it's a good move to see it count towards the total.
There was also people shaking hands to tie on certain events too. So
yeah,
that's part of why they did that.
Okay,
like,
I didn't know that actually, but yeah,
you could actually see it when Andre Foitu tied with the Denny carry with Mitchell Hooper, and he got him. He got him pretty good. Like if he didn't agree to that, he might have beat him on the Denny carry, and he actually might have gone to the final, which I think he kind of not that he like fully screwed that up, but like I think that cost him points because he easily could beat him in that event.
Yeah.
So let me remember to tell you, like, so who's like your favorite 105s?
My favorite 105s? I honestly, I'm still getting to know a lot of the guys and like watch their training. Vince Wilkinson's been fun to watch. Sean Mulligan's been fun to watch. I saw him do a 400-pound sandbag recently. Forgive me for forgetting his name, but World's Strongest Mullet's been fun to watch press.
Aiden Howell.
He's been really fun to watch press. Yeah, I mean, those 3 guys I've been kind of following a lot of their lifts and what they've been up to, and trying to stay keeping up with them as much as I can. But yeah, I mean, the middleweights are getting very strong now. And I feel like sort of what you're seeing is like the middleweight strength is starting to approach heavyweight level, but we're much faster and much more conditioned.
And honestly, you're absolutely right. There's some middleweights that, I mean, before Nicholas Camby switched over to heavyweight, he did a 411 log.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
And a lot of the middleweights are becoming guys that could be heavyweights, but just don't want to like carry the excess body weight. It feels like
they just want to look good while they do it. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
because most middleweights do look like bodybuilders, like prime Anthony Furman, prime Nicholas Camby.
You almost have to at this point to just put on enough muscle mass to be as strong as possible and still be fast and be competitive. You have to be fairly lean as a middleweight now.
I think all middleweights, even like because like my class, the 90 kilo class, like it's basically guys who are under 6 foot, but are like almost as good as a 105, if that makes any sense in terms of static strength.
Yeah.
Like we're like 80-90% of the way there. And then we're like even faster, right? And then 80 kilo guys, they're like kind of the same scenario. They're like ungodly fast. Their grip strength is stupid good. And then it's like the overhead is starting to get there, but the deadlift strength those guys have is stupid. Like the fact that 80 kilo guys can deadlift close to 800 pounds is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty wild because like that was World's Strongest Man level like not that long ago.
Like my friend Tyson, I don't know if you've ever heard of Little Big Thunder on Instagram. This guy, he did the silver dollar record.
Oh yeah.
90 kilo
at the Arnold. Yep.
Yeah, that man's insanely strong. So it's gonna be fun to see what men and women are doing in like the next 5 to 10 years in the sport because it's still growing. Yeah,
it's good. We're really starting to see like approaching like human potential, and every time I feel like we think we've approached like okay, there's no way anybody can deadlift more than 500 kilos or whatever. It's just not humanly possible. We keep driving it up. Every time we think we've hit that limit, we just keep pushing the potential. and then it reverberates down all of the weight classes too.
Yeah, I mean, like when John Hack deadlifted 900, people were like, "This is insane." You know?
Yeah. And I mean, across all strength sports, we're seeing that, so it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I think. What's like your two favorite lifts that you've ever seen, like in person?
Oh, in person's hard. I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen enough lifts in person to see like anything like insanely crazy, like close to a world record lift, honestly.
Well, we saw Inez sandbag to shoulder 330.
That's true. That was cool. Yeah.
I don't know if you count that or not, but
yeah. Well, I thought you meant in competition. Yeah. What about you? Do you have two favorites? It sounds like you might.
In person, my one of my favorite lifts that I saw, obviously your sandbag loading was awesome. To see somebody like, and you were fast too. It was, I think, sub 40, right?
Yeah.
So that's 5 bags at sub 40 is insane. And it wasn't a low shelf either. It was all over 48 inches, right? It was like 52, 48, something like that.
Yep.
Like there was some pro guys missing that.
Yeah.
And you kept up with pros. That's like the crazy part.
I mean, it's a brutal event at the last day, like last event of the comp for that day. Everyone's fatigued, and you have the heaviest sandbag at the end of a medley, so it's tough.
And they're different bags too, so you use slightly different techniques to pick them up.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys weren't prepared to have to load a Husafell sandbag. Like they should have known, and they probably should have
didn't train.
But a lot of guys seem to be like fumbling with that and not quite knowing how to get that over the bar.
Yeah, because there's some guys that were like flipping it sideways and trying to like almost flip it off their chest or something like that.
Weird stuff with it, and like if you trained with it, you'd realize the best way to do it is just to pick it like you normally would a Husafell stone and just do a triple extension with it once you get like a good lat position and kind of get low on it. But I guess if you didn't train with it, you might not know that. So
that's a good point, especially with the weight distribution of it, where it gets top heavy as you tip it.
Yeah, because I considered trying to lift it like that, sort of like sideways or whatever. Because you see guys carry Husafell stones like that sometimes. I think the Mountain did that at the Rogue Invitational recently.
His arms are long to do that.
yeah, that's built for it. But I tried it once in training and realized that, and then did the other way, like a normal Husafell, and realized that it was 10 times easier. So,
and I think that happened to you a little bit with your picking style on sandbag, right? Because you switched from a vertical picking style to a horizontal for that, and you felt like the transitions were a little quicker for the horizontal pick, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I've always done better with the horizontal pick for whatever reason. I think I just have a very, very strong squeezing power from training stones a lot, and that translates over really well to a wider bag. And then it allows me to kind of roll it in my lap a bit easier. And then I don't have a giant tall bag I have to get over my knees vertically. Because as the bags get heavier too, it gets, I think, more challenging to pick them vertically as they get longer. So horizontals just always worked better for me for the heavier bags.
Awesome. So I'm not going to hold you up too much because I know we went past the time you wanted.
Oh, no way.
One of the big questions that I wanted to ask you is like, if you were to pick 5 like dream contests to go to, which would they be?
5 dream contests. I mean, if we're really like talking dream contests, of course I'd love to do World's Strongest Man, the Arnold Pro Show, the Shaw, Rogue Invitational, and then for a fifth one's tough. I don't know. I'd love to go do like one of the big competitions, like over in Asia or something, like something more kind of out there that has like really weird events that you see sometimes over in Asia.
Like the OSG event they had recently. They had like a Stone series or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Whether it's through OSG or through like I don't know. Does like the Extinct Games do some stuff out there sometimes? There's some like weird federations over in that area that has some interesting competition.
I'll look them up a little bit more because I haven't really looked too.
Yeah, look into it. There's some like every once in a while. I don't know if they like still happen frequently or it was just like an early 2000s thing. But like they'll get some big names every once in a while, or like relatively big in the strongman world. But a lot of guys stopped kind of doing them that were in like the Giants live circuit because the events just started to get a little too crazy, I think, and like they didn't want to risk injury and all that. Because like Asian reality TV, like they want to like push the limits. Make
it gets crazy.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that. So look into it. I can't think of an example event, but yeah, they do some
Squid Game kind of stuff in terms of strongman.
Yeah, like very unconventional events. we'll say.
So like car flips and stuff. Awesome.
Even more out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would definitely be in the realm.
I saw there was one where people were lifting like Atlas stones with like handles and doing like really fast cleans with them. That was pretty cool.
That's interesting.
I think it was in, like Pakistan or India or something like that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's its own sport over there. It's like a type of stone lifting. Yeah. Martins Alicis has like explored a lot of that. I've watched his stuff on that, so it's pretty cool to see. And I see like Bardos also has like instead of a block, they have like a loadable cube now. That's almost like a similar style to lift. So that'll be.
Yeah, they got that from this the Basque stone lifting community in Spain.
Oh,
there was a tribe that competes that way.
Yeah,
they have like metals, like they mimic metal like stones with like these crazy metal fabrications, and they go up to like 800 pounds to shoulder and stuff. It's insane.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see like more events making their way into strongman like that are just found from these other like strength communities around the world.
I think it would be cool, or bring back sumo wrestling.
Yeah, I want to see new events. I don't want the events we've developed up to this point to just stay there forever. I want to see new events come in for sure.
I think new events are coming. I mean, obviously the Arnold, it sucks that the hoist event wasn't there, but there's like a lot of issues with the venue and there not being enough volunteers. So I'm not here to slander anyone by any means if anyone happens to see this video. But that was like the other thing about the Arnold too, right? Was like not having like you guys didn't really have too much of a warm-up area because the venue had limitations, and then we were next to Young LA to make things even worse.
Yeah, it was tough, and I know some weight classes like had logs misloaded and things like that. It's just part of having a new organizer take this on in such like a time crunch.
That just didn't have any volunteers either,
and they're doing the best they can, like offering the heavyweights to come back next year since their competition got cut very short. So yeah, hopefully, we can just keep improving next year and have things be better and better for the athletes moving forward.
So do you plan on going up to heavyweight within the next 2 to 3 years, or are you waiting until you get your pro card as a 105 to like kind of see where to go from there?
I think I'd really like to get my pro card first. Once I go up a weight class, it'll cost me a couple years to kind of get my pro card again. But I'd like to get my pro card first. Maybe have fun with it for like a year, do some invited comps, and then go up. But I don't plan to stay at a middleweight forever, I don't think.
You're tall enough to go to heavyweight, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't like cutting weight. So if that helps me avoid cutting weight even for like a year or two, it'd be nice.
Yeah, because you don't do extensive water cuts from my understanding either, right? Like you don't do these like 15 to 20 pound water cuts, right?
Really not until recently. I mean, now my water cuts are about 15 pounds or so, but I don't like much more than that.
You're better than me. I was here to say I diet down maybe 10 pounds and I'll water cut close to 20.
Yeah.
So if I was in your class, I would be doing like 30 to 40.
Yeah, and some guys do. But I think it's one like
which I don't recommend for everyone.
I'm always trying to balance my health and performance, but then the other aspect is like I think it can be risky. Like there's just a higher chance things go wrong.
Oh, like, you could die.
I mean, you could die, or I mean, not even that, but like you could completely like mess up your water cut to where you feel terrible on competition day.
Yeah, you get sick.
Yeah, so that can happen, and I don't think I've made the calculation. I don't think it's worth the risk for me. Like I'd rather just come in slightly lighter than to like risk, having an extra 5 to 10 pounds in the off season and then completely throwing off the whole comp because I cut too much weight. So it's about, and it's kind of learning what your body's capable of and what you can manage.
And I think some people come in too fluffy for their water cuts anyway. So like if you're not like anywhere close to 15% body fat, work on that first for anyone who's just listening to this.
Yeah. But
because I think a lot of people they think, oh, well, obviously the more muscle mass you have, the easier it is to water cut. So that is a factor too.
Yeah.
But some people are nowhere close to lean enough to even worry about water cutting yet.
Yeah.
And I think that can be an issue too. Like you lean out pretty good. You're like what, like definitely like close to 12% body fat by the time you start competing.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really done like a DEXA scan or anything like that to know for sure. And I rarely even like bother to do the calculation just because I don't know. I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't care that much, but yeah, I mean, maybe I think that might be a little over generous, probably close to 15% if I had to guess, maybe even 20. I don't know. I think
which is a healthy range, so that's good.
Range. I try to stay in a healthy range. Like I'm not motivated by aesthetics anymore at all.
Yeah, I feel that. So just in case people don't know about your platforms, it seems like you started up a shirt line. So in case anybody is wondering, Vegan Hercules shirts, they're in really good condition. Where can they find that?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Vegan Hercules. I have a link in my bio for that, or you can go to veganhercules.company.site. I just launched a new shirt, actually, these ones here.
I like that. The Hercules whole shirt you had there too.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
That one, and that's really to help me raise some money for National Worlds coming up.
Awesome. I'll make sure to buy a shirt. For anyone who's watching this, feel free to buy a shirt. They're pretty cool. So you started a coaching business. You started selling shirts. I see your wife's partner. Oh, sorry, not your wife. Your girlfriend's partnered up with you. She's the dietitian side of things, right?
Yeah, she's a registered dietitian, so she's going to be kind of handling nutrition for my clients that need it. And we're really just in the last month. I mean, really last week, I've really gotten this going. So
that's awesome. I see that she's really taken off with that too. Is she starting up a cookbook or anything like that, or
maybe at some point? We'll see. For now, it's just kind of the nutrition coaching.
That's awesome. Well, I'm happy for you guys.
Appreciate it.
Sorry for accidentally spoiling future things.
No.
All right. So I guess before we close out, are there any questions you have for me regarding any of this stuff?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot.
Cool. Perfect. So in case any of you guys didn't know, Vegan Hercules, one of the strongest vegans in America for the 105 kilo class, just did the Arnold Amateur, placed mid-pack, and now he's going to Natural Worlds. We're excited to see him go in for a good contention. Super excited for this show. I think it's going to be big. Feel free to leave any closing remarks, Bradie.
Yeah, just super excited for Natural Worlds right now. I'm really hoping to gun for a world title here.
I think you're capable of it, so it's going to be really fun to watch you go for it.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Bye-bye.